The frontier outpost on Kelvara 4 hummed with the usual symphony of alien wildlife. Lieutenant Mara Keene had learned to distinguish each sound over her 6-month deployment: the chittering of wing scales in the canopy, the distant roar of something massive prowling the ridgeline, and the particular rustling that meant trouble was about to pounce on her boots. She didn't even look up from her datapad. "Turn, I can hear you," she called out, her voice carrying that peculiar mix of amusement and warning that had become her trademark among the station's xenobiological residents. The rustling stopped. Then, with the impulsive bravery only a young predator could muster, Turn launched himself from the undergrowth anyway. The cub was all coiled muscle and needle-sharp claws, easily 40 kilograms of apex predator genetics compressed into a package roughly the size of a large dog. His species, the Krell, had evolved on a world where hesitation meant starvation and aggression meant survival. Even the cubs were dangerous, at least they were supposed to be. Turn's leap was textbook perfect. His trajectory would have caught Mara's legs at the knee, bowl her over, and in the wild allow his pack to swarm in for the kill. It was instinct, honed over millions of years of evolution. Mara's hand shot out and caught him mid-air. Her fingers closed around his scruff with practiced ease, and before Turn could process what had happened, she'd spun around in a full circle, holding him at arm's length like a particularly energetic house cat. The cub's momentum became part of her spin, and she completed the rotation with a laugh that echoed across the clearing. "Gotcha, little hunter," she said, grinning as she brought him down to eye level. Tyrion's triple-lidded eyes blinked in rapid succession, the Krell equivalent of utter confusion. His claws flexed uselessly in the air, his tail whipping back and forth in frustrated bewilderment. This wasn't how the hunt was supposed to go. This wasn't how anything was supposed to go. From the edge of the clearing, Tyrion's mother, matriarch Vressa, watched with what could only be described as fascinated horror. The massive Krell had been observing the human engineer for months, trying to understand the paradox that was Mara Keene. Humans were supposed to be weak. The intelligence reports from first contact had been clear. No natural weapons, no armor plating, no venom, no enhanced sensory organs. They were prey species that had somehow stumbled into space travel through sheer technological compensation for their physical inadequacies. And yet, Mara set Turn down gently, ruffling the bioluminescent crest along his head. The cub sat back on his haunches, looking thoroughly humbled. This was the 5th time this week he'd tried to ambush the human, and the 5th time she'd caught him like he weighed nothing. "You're getting better," Mara said encouragingly, crouching down to the cub's level. That leap had at least 15% more power than yesterday. "But you're still telegraphing with your haunches. See?" she demonstrated, tensing her own legs. "You bunch up too much before the jump. Try to keep the tension more distributed." She was teaching him to hunt her more effectively. Vressa's jaw dropped, revealing rows of serrated teeth in an expression of pure disbelief. "Lieutenant Keene," the matriarch rumbled, her voice carrying the subsonic frequencies that made most species instinctively freeze. "You realize you are training a predator to kill you?" Mara looked up, that infuriating human smile still plastered across her face. "He's not trying to kill me, matriarch. He's playing. Aren't you, Turn?" The cub chirped, actually chirped, and headbutted Mara's palm with enough force to have shattered a lesser species' bones. She scratched behind his auditory ridges, and Turn's back legs started thumping against the ground in contentment. A predator, an apex predator, thumping his leg like a domesticated pet. Vressa approached slowly, her massive form casting a shadow over the human and her cub. At full height, she stood nearly 3 meters tall, with claws that could rend steel and jaws that could crush starship hull plating. She had led her pack through the most dangerous regions of Kelvara 4, had survived challenges from rival matriarchs, had killed things that gave nightmares to nightmares, and this human, this fragile little biped showed absolutely no fear. How? Vressa asked, the question encompassing so much more than a single word could hold. Mara stood up, wiping dust from her utility pants. Turn immediately began circling her legs, play-stalking her boots. "How what, matriarch? How do you do this?" Vressa gestured a turn at the clearing at the entire impossible situation. "You have no claws, no armor. Your reflexes are adequate at best. You should be prey. You should be dead. And yet my cub treats you like pack." Mara's expression softened. She looked down at Tern, who had paused his stalking to look up at her with those alien eyes that somehow still managed to convey puppy-like adoration. "We don't have claws," Mara agreed. "We don't have much in the way of natural weapons at all. But we have something else, matriarch. We have endurance, patience, the ability to see potential in things that others see as threats." She paused, choosing her words carefully, "And maybe most importantly, we have the capacity to find joy in the strangest places." "Joy?" Vressa's translator struggled with the concept. "Yeah, joy, happiness, fun." Mara grinned as Tern finally launched another sneak attack at her boots. This time she let him catch her, falling backwards in an exaggerated tumble that sent the cub into ecstatic circles. "Look, matriarch, I know Tern's instincts tell him to hunt, but he's also young, and play is how young things learn. On Earth, we had predators too, big ones. And we learned that understanding them, respecting them, sometimes even loving them, that was more powerful than fearing them." Vressa watched as her cub, her precious offspring who would one day lead his own pack, rolled on his back while the human rubbed his belly. The cub's claws were retracted, his throat, the most vulnerable part of a krell, completely exposed. Trust, complete, absolute trust. "Your species is insane," Vressa said, but there was no malice in it, only wonder. Mara laughed, that same bright sound that had echoed across the clearing minutes before. "Yeah, we get that a lot, but we're also still here, matriarch. Still standing, still laughing." She looked up at the massive predator, her eyes meeting Vressa's without flinching. "And still making friends in the strangest places." Tern chirped again and pounced at Mara's hand. She caught him mid-leap, spun him around, and set him down with a playful tap on his nose. The cub looked at his mother, then back at Mara, and in that moment, Vressa understood something profound. Humanity hadn't conquered the stars despite their weakness. They had conquered the stars because they refused to accept that weakness defined them. They turned predators into playmates, fear into laughter, and impossibility into just another challenge to overcome. They were insane. But perhaps, Vressa thought as she watched Mara and Tern play in the fading light of Kelvara's twin suns, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Tern leapt again. Mara caught him, and her laughter rang out across the frontier, a sound of defiance and joy that no predator could silence.